One of the most powerful tools that I like to equip leaders with, whether it's a CEO, a senior leader, an emerging leader, this one tool alone will bring you back centered over and over again. And it's called facts versus stories. I learned this technique from the Conscious Leadership Group, and I've been practicing for the last 6 years or so, and I love bringing it to leaders. And we'll explore facts and stories, and then I also will be talking later in the episode about the reactive parts of us that get caught up in creating these stories. So to set the stage, when we're leaders, our perspective really matters. And it's not always obvious, but our perspective changes based on the stories we're telling ourselves. And you could have the same set of people in a meeting and they're all telling each other themselves different stories, different versions of what's happening right in front of them. They're creating stories. We humans are meaning making machines. We do this naturally. And sometimes when we're unconscious to these stories, they run us in ways that we can't see possibility. We can't see other versions of the story. We remain attached to the one version of the story that's running through our heads. So I'm going to tell you how this works. When we look at facts and stories, facts are things that a video camera could record, and stories are everything else, everything we make up about the facts. So let's practice. Let's say you're in a meeting. The meeting was scheduled to start at 9 o'clock. Bob walks into the room, the door opened. Bob walks into the room at 9:10. Sally may be sitting there saying like, Bob's always late. He doesn't respect our time. Why can't he get his act together and get here on time? Whereas somebody else in the room, Tom, could be saying like, oh yeah, here he goes again. He's, was probably caught up in traffic because I know that commute, it's really rough. So every person in the room could make up a different story about what's happening. And so one way to get clear on this is to say, okay, what exactly could the video camera describe? The video camera could record Bob walking into the room at 9:10 a.m. What happens is we make up stories in our own head based on our past experiences. And so let's say I'm in that meeting and I make up the story that Bob is late because he doesn't respect our time and he's always late and he just always runs late. And I'm making up that story. One thing that I could do is I could check my story with Bob. Now, I don't have to do that in the meeting. I could do it afterwards. I could say, hey, Bob, I noticed that this is the fact that you came into the room at 9:10 and the meeting was scheduled to start at 9. Over here, I made up the story that you often run late and that you don't respect the time of the group. I said, I just want to check that story out with you. That's the story I made up, but I want to check out with you what was happening for you and can we verify that story? And so Bob may say, actually, I was in a car wreck and, then he could go into some explanation. There are many stories of what could have actually happened that could be very different than the story that I made up in my head. So whenever you're making up a story, there's a process to stop yourself to say, okay, can I claim that this is the story I'm making up? And can I wonder, I wonder if there could be another story that could be the truth. And part of this is what we call holding something lightly. So if I have a pen and I'm holding onto my story, right, I'm like, Bob's always late. I'm like really closed around that story. I'm like, oh, I wonder why Bob was late. I get curious about it. It's like, I could still make up that story, but I'm curious. I'm like, what else could have happened? Let me check that out. So this can be done internally with ourselves to catch our own stories, or when we get good at this and we practice it, we can also check out our stories with other people. And it's not in a way that's judgmental. It's owning, I over here am making up this interpretation. I want to check out with you whether that interpretation is true or not. It actually takes a lot of courage to reveal the story that's in your head that you made up, because you're actually telling Bob about you rather than telling Bob about himself. It's like, I made up the story over here. It may not have anything to do with what actually occurred with Bob. So facts and stories, it's a great tool to check yourself, but also to check in with others about the stories that you're making up. And this really is a practice that courageous leaders can use, and it helps to have a little guidance sometimes and get used to it and check the facts and stories. There's another tool to take it even another step forward. This is from Byron Katie, where you're checking to see if the opposite of your story could be just as true. So we won't go into all the details of that today, but it's even as simple as to say, okay, I'm making up this story that Bob doesn't respect my time. And it could be like, am I even willing to see that the opposite of that could be true? Yes, Bob does respect my time. The opposite of that could be, I don't respect my time. So there are lots of ways to play with it to start to dislodge the how we're holding something in our heads so that we can open up to new possibility. I want to offer that to you as a way to check in, especially when you feel really stuck, you feel judgmental, you feel like I'm right about this. That's when you know that you're in a state of threat. You're what we would call below the line. You're coming from a state of threat. So one way to shift that is to, first of all, not judge yourself. Again, humans are meaning-making machines. And to start this practice of, can I separate the fact from the story? And when you do this, a lot of possibility opens up, space opens up. You're not stuck in one interpretation that may or may not be true. So I love this practice. Would love to hear from you if you've tried it, what you're getting and what you're seeing. And if you need some practice with that with a group, then let me know, because I like to have teams practice with this, because it opens up a whole nother level of candor and communication and influence when you start to use a simple tool such as this.